Hello everyone. In a septic patient, what actually causes the damage that we see? At the molecular level, much of it comes down to one major process, lipid peroxidation, a mechanism that can convert a localized biochemical disturbance into full-blown multi-organ failure. And under the right conditions, it just takes a few free radicals to trigger that cascade. Welcome to ICU Physiology Insights, where we go beyond surface level explanation. On this channel, we explore the evidence and pathophysiology behind the medicine we practice daily. These are the topics that we don't discuss on medical rounds. We aren't preparing for any tests. We are here to understand why, so you can take better care of your patient and enjoy medicine. This is going to be a curiosity lecture. This may not help you manage your patient at bedside, but it will help you understand what is going on at the cellular level. This will help you understand why your patient is deteriorating despite your best effort to manage the macro hemodynamical parameters. What I want to do today is simple. I want to show you what is happening at the cellular level in your critically ill patient, why and how does it happen. If you have ever watched a patient spiraling down in your ICU, you have seen this process in action. Our attempts at maintaining MAP and oxygen delivery doesn't seem to help. Today we are going to walk through that molecular cascade, a mechanism which we call ferroptosis. In the previous lecture, we learned the reduction potential of a reaction and picking order of reactive oxygen species and free radicals. Molecules on the right of this ladder can steal electrons from those on the left and oxidize them, and this depends upon their reduction potential. Since the reduction potential of polyunsaturated fatty acid, which we'll call PUFA, is around minus 600 millivolt, so any radical with reduction potential more than 600 millivolt, preferably higher, should be able to steal electrons from PUFA. The higher the reduction potential, more likely and much faster the reaction will happen. So the hydroxyl radical with the reduction potential of 2300 is going to be the fastest. Other reactive oxygen species like alkyl radical, peroxynitrite and superoxide can also steal electron from PUFA with decreasing likelihood. The most common source for hydroxyl radical is the Fenton's reaction, which involves iron. We learned that there is around 1 to 2% electron leak from the electron transport chain in mitochondria. These leaked electrons can combine with oxygen molecule to form superoxide radical. So mitochondria has this constant low level of superoxide which it converts to hydrogen peroxide by enzyme superoxide dismutase. This hydrogen peroxide is usually used for redox signaling. Now mitochondria needs iron for its cytochromes and it hides it well in the proteins. The problem arises when the iron dysregulation occurs, such as you see in inflammation or sepsis or hemolysis. This is where the ferrous iron can drive the Fenton reaction to convert the hydrogen peroxide to hydroxyl radical. The hydroxyl radical can combine with nitric oxide in endothelial cells to form peroxynitrite, which can also drive this reaction, and that's when the thing starts becoming more dangerous. I have discussed some of these mechanisms in my previous lectures. Feel free to check them out. Now the key moment. A hydroxyl radicals encounter a PUFA. It steals an electron and instantly it creates a lipid radical. Why? Because the energy gradient is massive, around positive 1700 millivolts. This reaction is essentially unavoidable once encounter occurs. When the newly formed PUFA radical runs into oxygen, it immediately oxidizes to PUFA peroxy radical. This is also a very fast diffusion-limited reaction. The rate kinetics dictates that if PUFA radical encounters an oxygen molecule, the reaction is guaranteed, and the oxygen is everywhere. Your cells cannot stop this reaction. This brings an interesting fact which I wanted to share. Fortunately, mitochondria evolved in an anaerobic environment billions of years ago, so it keeps its partial pressure of oxygen to the order of 1 to 2 millimeters of mercury, which corresponds to only about 1 to 2 micromolar concentration of oxygen. This is one of the natural defenses against the free radicals, as free electrons leak in this area. For comparison, the concentration of glutathione, one of the most common antioxidant in mitochondria, is about 5 micromolar. Now the PUFA peroxy radical formed attacks the adjacent PUFA, since this is also a highly oxidizing reaction with a reduction potential of 400 millivolts. The PUFA peroxy radical therefore forms a new PUFA radical. So this is the key concept. A single event can become self-propagating chain reaction which expands into widespread membrane damage. Fortunately, the kinetics of this reaction is much slower, and we'll see how vitamin E utilizes this slower kinetics to work in its favor. Since this is catastrophic for cells, there are many pathways dedicated to deal with this attack. But in your slowly spiraling down patient, the cellular defenses are exhausted. So at this point, maintaining higher MAPs or oxygen delivery becomes kind of mute. At this stage, giving antioxidants like methylene blue, vitamin C, B12 seems logical, but as we have discussed before, simply supplementing a compound doesn't guarantee that it will reach or even act effectively at the site of injury. So why are PUFA so vulnerable? PUFA are required to maintain fluidity in your cell membrane, and they do so because of their double bonds. Without these double bonds, your cells will not be pliable. The thing that necessitates their function is also the thing that makes them vulnerable. For oxidation, what matters is the weakest oxidizable CH bond, and that bond determines whether the lipid peroxidation will start. The most vulnerable is the CH bond between two double bonds. This bond has at least 10 to 20 kilocalories per mole lower bond dissociation energy than other bonds. A 20 kilocalories per mole drop in bond strength translates into orders of magnitude of increase in oxidation susceptibility. More double bonds means more weak points and higher overall susceptibility. So, does it mean that decreasing the number of double bonds in a cell membrane protects you from ferroptosis? And the answer seems to be yes. Cells actively incorporate PUFA into their membrane via enzymes like ACSL4 and LPCAT3. These enzymes enrich the bilipid layer with PUFA, which is used in arachidonic acid and eicosanoid pathways, which are essential for inflammation and signaling. Interestingly, if you knock these out in animal models, you do observe some resistance to ferroptosis. But these come at a cost. These PUFA are not optional. They are fundamental to the physiology of the membrane and cell signaling. So what we just talked about is not just biochemistry. This is the molecular basis of organ failure in most of your critical ill patient. Lipid peroxidation destroys membrane integrity, and without compartmentalization, cells cannot function. Now, let me make an important distinction. Lipid oxidation is also an integral part of cell signaling. Our bodies use enzymes called lipooxygenases to oxidize lipids in a strictly regulated way to create specific signaling messenger, and it's totally necessary for cellular communication and immunity. You must have read about these enzymes when you encountered the arachidonic acid pathways or leukotriene pathways, so you know that these are essential for survival. The other way lipids get oxidized is from an unregulated free radical damage, what we just discussed. Ferroptosis is a non-enzymatic, uncontrolled lipid peroxidation driven by iron-dependent radical formation. So let's dig a bit deeper. When lipids become peroxidized, they become polar. The polar end migrates toward the lipid-water interface. This creates a defect in the membrane and therefore permeability changes. So the ions like sodium and potassium leak and calcium enters the cytosol. And as the intracellular potassium leaks out and the sodium moves in, the cells rapidly swell with the fluid as the water rushes in, resulting in bursting of cell by a process called osmolysis. The inner mitochondrial membrane is the most vulnerable area to lipid peroxidation. Why? Because this is where most of the free radicals are generated. And secondly, mitochondria is rich in cardiolipin. It's a phospholipid containing 4 polyunsaturated fatty acid tails. Now, cardiolipin is a very essential for anchoring the cytochrome C to the inner mitochondrial membrane. When it undergoes peroxidation, it undergoes structural kinking, causing cytochrome C to detach and leak into the cytosol. And this halts ATP production as membranes become leaky and cannot sustain proton gradient. The peroxidation of cardiolipin also alters the mitochondrial sodium-calcium pumps, resulting in calcium influx. This opens up mitochondrial permeability transition pore called MPTP, leading to mitochondrial swelling and then rupture. This leads to mitochondrial collapse and death. This is your ferroptosis in action. Ferroptosis is not same as apoptosis, which is highly regulated. Ferroptosis is highly unstructured and unregulated. These cells, when they undergo ferroptosis, they spill their content, driving inflammation further. But the damage doesn't stop here. The breakdown products of peroxidized lipids are reactive aldehydes, specifically 4-hydroxynonenal and malondialdehyde. Unlike the hydroxyl radical, which has life of around 1 nanosecond, these aldehydes are stable enough to diffuse away from the site of origin, and these guys are bad news. 4-HNE acts like a molecular glue, binding and inactivating critical enzymes and ion channels across the cell. Here you can see how 4-HNE cross-links histidine and lysine residues. These covalent modification result in formation of advanced lipoxidation end products called ALE, which permanently alter the structural integrity of proteins and DNA. Malondihyde is more non-selective and just keeps on cross-linking proteins. It also reacts with DNA bases, especially guanine, resulting in thymine transversion and resulting in change in base pairs. This drives carcinogenesis. These aldehydes act as damage-associated molecular patterns called DAMPs. These are recognized by Toll-like receptors which stimulate NF-kappa B pathway, and we know that that pathway amplifies the cytokine storm. So let me summarize this in simple terms. In a very sick patient, what we are really seeing is a runaway chemical reaction inside the cell membrane. It often starts with iron and reactive oxygen species, generating a very aggressive free radical, which attacks the lipid membranes, especially PUFAs, and once it starts, it spreads from one lipid to the next. So a small injury quickly becomes a widespread membrane damage. As membrane breaks down, cells lose their ion balance, mitochondria fail, and energy production stops. At the same time, the toxic byproducts like 4-HNE and MDA are formed, which go to damage proteins, DNA, and amplify inflammation. The body does have defenses like glutathione, glutathione peroxidase, vitamin E, coenzyme Q, and BH4. But once these are overwhelmed, the process becomes self-sustaining. And that's the key point. At that stage, fixing blood pressure or oxygen alone doesn't reverse what's happening. This process is what we call ferroptosis, an iron-driven, uncontrolled lipid peroxidation leading to cell death. So what we are seeing in the ICU is not just organ failure, it is failure at the level of cell membranes. In the next lecture, we'll see how your cellular defenses take care of ferroptosis. Hope this was useful. Thank you.